At certain moments in life, we feel pushed to the limit, as if under attack from all directions, and the only thing left is a desperate cry for help. It's not a quiet prayer, but a shout from the depths of the soul, asking for divine intervention, a justice that seems to be delayed. Psalm 3 in its 7th verse captures this intensity in words that seem to tear through the air. Arise, Lord. Save me, my God, for you have struck all my enemies on the cheek, you have broken the teeth of the wicked. This passage, charged with vivid imagery and palpable urgency, is a cry for divine action in the face of oppression. Again, the voice is David's, who, even in his flight and vulnerability, does not hesitate to ask God to rise in his defense. He doesn't ask passively. He invokes, almost demands, divine intervention, based on the belief that God has acted this way in the past and will act again. It is a declaration of faith that, even amidst pain, envisions victory and justice coming from heaven. A plea for intervention. Arise, Lord. Save me, my God. The expression, "Arise, Lord," is a dramatic request, almost a command for God to emerge from an apparent state of inaction and intervene. It's not that God is sleeping or inert, but this is the language of human supplication that in its despair longs for a visible manifestation of divine power. It is a cry for justice, for deliverance, for an end to oppression. The psalmist is not asking for subtle help. He wants a powerful and undeniable intervention. The "Save me, my God" is an acknowledgement that salvation, deliverance, solution, protection can only come from a higher source. It is the soul surrendering, not to defeat, but to total dependence on the Creator. Consider Donna Regina's story. In her early 60s, she had dedicated decades of her life to volunteer work in a small community. Over time, the institution grew, attracting new leaders and funders. However, with this expansion also came a series of intrigues and unjust accusations aimed at discrediting Donna Regina and removing her from her work. Malicious gossip, innuendo, and even attempts at sabotage began to surround her. She felt wronged, hurt, and completely powerless in the face of such malice. Nights were filled with anguish, and she questioned whether all her effort had been in vain. In a moment of deep exhaustion, sitting in her living room, looking at photos of all the lives she had touched, Donna Regina could no longer hold back her tears. There, in her fragility, she did not whisper a gentle prayer. She felt a force emerge from within her, a silent cry echoing in her heart. Arise, Lord, save me, my God, I can't take this anymore. Bring justice. It was a raw, desperate cry, yet full of deep faith that God saw her affliction and would not remain idle. The cry for arise is the expression of a faith that believes God is a God of action, who does not abandon his children to their fate, especially when injustice seems to prevail. It is the voice of one who refuses to accept defeat and appeals to the highest authority. Divine justice in action. For you have struck all my enemies on the cheek. You have broken the teeth of the wicked. This part of the verse is, without a doubt, the most graphic and impactful. The images of striking on the cheek and breaking teeth are powerful metaphors for the total and humiliating defeat of the enemy. In ancient contexts, striking someone's cheek, mouth, could symbolize silencing, the inability to speak lies or utter threats. Breaking the teeth of wild animals or cruel men meant taking away their ability to harm, to bite, to cause damage. In other words, the psalmist is asking for, and at the same time recalling God's ability to completely disarm his adversaries, rendering them harmless and powerless. It is a desire for justice to be done unequivocally, for the capacity to do evil to be taken from the wicked. Consider the case of Mr. Horacio. He had worked for decades in a family business, building his reputation with honesty and dedication. However, after a change in management, he became the target of a series of disloyal maneuvers and slanders by an ambitious colleague who coveted his position. Mr. Horacio saw his reputation tarnished, his name dragged through the mud, and felt a profound injustice. His family, who watched him wither, also suffered. He tried to defend himself, but the lies seemed to have more power. The feeling of powerlessness was overwhelming, and the urge to retaliate in kind, almost irresistible. In his anguish, Mr. Horacio took refuge in his faith. He did not seek personal vengeance, but cried out to God for justice. He prayed, "Lord, break the teeth of the wicked who try to destroy me. Silence the lies that surround me." The answer did not come as immediate punishment to his enemy, but in a surprising way. The truth about his colleagues' actions came to light through unexpected channels within the company itself. Without Mr. Horacio's direct intervention, the slanders were exposed, and the colleague's reputation was in fact broken. He lost his credibility and his power of influence. For Mr. Horacio, this was the manifestation of divine justice, the struck cheek and broken teeth of those who wronged him. It was not personal revenge, but the certainty that God in his justice prevents evil from prevailing indefinitely, disarming those who seek to destroy. This is a powerful image of divine intervention that justly ceases the ability to harm the innocent. The basis of boldness, God's past faithfulness. The most notable thing about David's prayer is that he doesn't ask for something God has never done. He uses God's past experience in his life as the basis for his present boldness. By saying, "For you have struck all my enemies on the cheek, you have broken the teeth of the wicked," he is reminding himself and God of the countless times the Lord had already delivered him from adversaries. David had faced giants, powerful kings, and entire armies, and on all occasions God had proven to be a faithful defender. This memory of past victories fuels faith for the present and for the future. For us, this is an invitation to revisit our own history. How many times throughout life have we found ourselves in situations that seemed hopeless, surrounded by problems that seemed bigger than us? And looking back, we realize that in some way, we were delivered, protected, or empowered to overcome. These experiences are the proofs of God's faithfulness in our lives, the enemies struck on the cheek of the past, which give us the basis to cry out with confidence in the present. Think of a time when you were at a crossroads, not knowing which way to go, and an unexpected door opened. Or that time when illness seemed insurmountable, but a miraculous recovery or an inner strength propelled you forward. Or even when an injustice seemed irreversible, but the truth came to light in a way you would never have imagined. These are the struck cheeks of your own enemies, be they diseases, debts, slanders, or hopelessness itself. By remembering these past victories, our faith is strengthened, and we gain the courage to say, "Yes, Lord, you are the same yesterday, today, and forever. Arise and save me once again." David's prayer is a reminder that faith is not based on naivety about the cruel world, but on a deep trust in the justice and power of an active God. It encourages us not to accept injustice passively, but to raise it to the divine court, trusting that he will do what is right in his time and in his way, disarming those who seek evil and defending his own. Selah, the pause for justice and unwavering trust. As in other moments of the psalm, we are invited to the reflective pause of Selah. After the powerful and almost shocking declaration of a God who rises and acts with decisive power against enemies, this pause compels us to internalize the truth. It is an invitation to stop and consider the magnitude of this faith that cries out for justice and trusts in such a forceful intervention. What injustices or enemies surround you today and seem to have their mouth full of venom against you? Have you cried out to God for him to arise in your defense? Can you remember struck cheeks in your own history? Moments when God acted and disarmed your adversaries? Selah encourages us not just to read about David's boldness, but to practice it in our own lives. It is a call to take a deep breath, acknowledge the threats and injustices, yes, but then deliberately cry out to God with the certainty that he is a God of justice who rises in defense of his own. It is the moment to solidify the faith that God's presence is the guarantee that in the end, good will prevail and that evil's capacity to harm us will indeed be broken. Therefore, when life presents its most perverse challenges, when injustices seem to surround you, and the force of evil appears overwhelming, remember Psalm 3:7. It is not an invitation to personal vengeance, but a declaration of trust in divine justice. May you find in its words the courage to cry out with faith and the certainty that God, your defender, will rise, acting on your behalf, disarming what threatens you and bringing the salvation that only he can offer.